I always considered myself intuitive, adept at reading people and situations. That self-assuredness crumbled the day I met Nathan. Nathan joined our team as a consultant, and from the moment he walked into our office, he exuded a sense of confidence that was almost palpable. He was charming, articulate, and had a way of making every conversation seem deeply personal. Initially, I was impressed. Nathan seemed to have a knack for understanding everyone's needs and motivations. He would often spend lunch breaks with different team members, and I noticed how he seemed to adapt his personality to match whoever he was talking to. I found it intriguing, a skill I thought, until it was my turn to fall under his spell. It started with casual conversations, where Nathan would express a keen interest in my life, my hobbies, and my aspirations. It felt flattering to have someone take such a keen interest. He made me feel seen, understood, and appreciated, feelings that were rare in the high-stress environment of our office. But as weeks passed, Nathan's interaction with me intensified. He began confiding in me, sharing personal stories of his challenging past and struggles. I empathized with him, feeling a bond forming between us. He seemed to lean on me for emotional support, and I was more than willing to be there for him. Then, subtly, things began to change. Nathan started asking for favors, nothing major at first, just small tasks related to work. However, soon these requests escalated into more personal errands. I found myself doing things I was uncomfortable with, like lying to cover for his tardiness or mistakes. Each time I felt hesitant, Nathan would remind me of our special connection and how I was the only one he could trust. It was a manipulation, but I was too entangled in his emotional web to see it. One day, Nathan asked me to access confidential company data for a project he was working on. He assured me it was for the greater good of the company and our jobs. Despite the alarm bells ringing in my head, I found myself agreeing. I rationalized it as helping a friend, a trusted colleague. But once I handed over the information, Nathan's demeanor changed. He became distant, and our conversations grew sparse and formal. I felt confused and used, but I couldn't quite understand why. It was then that I started noticing the pattern. Nathan had been doing the same with other colleagues, gaining their trust, using them for his benefit, and then discarding them when they were no longer useful. I realized that Nathan's stories of struggle, his confidence, and even his personality traits were carefully crafted to manipulate. He used what psychologists call dark psychology, a blend of manipulation, emotional exploitation, and psychological trickery to control and use people for his personal gain. The realization hit me hard. I was a pawn in Nathan's game, used for his agenda. The guilt of accessing confidential information weighed heavily on me. I knew I had to come clean, regardless of the consequences. I reported the incident to our management, fully aware that it might mean the end of my job. When confronted, Nathan was a different person. He denied everything, painting me as the overzealous employee who misinterpreted his intentions. His charm and eloquence, which had once captivated me, now served as his shield. But the evidence was irrefutable. The investigation revealed his manipulations and the extent of his deceit. Nathan was dismissed, but the aftermath of his actions lingered. Colleagues who had been charmed by him now questioned their judgment. There was a sense of betrayal that permeated the office. As for me, I faced disciplinary action for my breach of protocol. It was a harsh but fair consequence. I was fortunate to keep my job, but my reputation took a hit. The experience left a deep impact on me. I questioned my ability to read people and situations. The realization that I had been manipulated so effortlessly shook my confidence. It was a hard lesson in humility and the complexities of human psychology. I began to educate myself on dark psychology, trying to understand the methods and motives behind such manipulative behavior. I learned about the tactics used, the charm, the feigned vulnerability, the guilt-tripping. Knowledge, I realized, was my shield against such manipulation. I became more cautious in my interactions, more discerning about whom I placed my trust in. I learned to set boundaries and to listen to my intuition when it whispered warnings. It was a slow process, rebuilding my self-esteem and my faith in my judgment. Looking back, I see Nathan's presence in our office as a dark chapter, but also a crucial learning curve. It taught me that manipulation can come in the most charming of forms, and that sometimes the most dangerous people are those who know exactly what to say and how to say it. 4 years ago, when I was nestled in the modest sanctuary of my office, I encountered a case that still lingers in my memory. As a psychologist specializing in couples therapy, I had seen various shades of troubled relationships. But Leah and Mark were different. They were probably the youngest married couple I had ever counseled. Leah, with her piercing blue eyes, appeared fragile and delicate, like a porcelain doll. Mark, on the other hand, carried an air of weariness, his eyes reflecting a story of premature hardship. Leah had begun our session with a trembling voice, expressing gratitude but struggling to find her starting point. "It's Mark. He's changed. He's not the man I married," she had said. Mark's scoff, accompanied by a frustrated rub of his temples, had been the first red flag. "Here we go, with the theatrics," he had muttered, a hint of scorn in his tone. Leah's tears, her crumbling demeanor, were hard to ignore as she spoke of Mark's cruelty and coldness. "He controls me, checks my phone, dictates who I can see, what I can wear. I feel suffocated," she had revealed. Mark's eye roll and his counter-accusations of Leah being obsessive and paranoid had added to the tension. It was a classic portrayal of a troubled relationship. But something about Leah's demeanor and her specific complaints about the guillotine, Mark's method of cutting her off from the world as punishment, had raised alarms in my mind. As the session progressed, Mark's attempt to paint himself as a victim and Leah as the manipulative one had seemed less convincing. His reveal of bruises and scratches, allegedly from Leah, had been dramatic, but his body language had betrayed a sense of performance. Leah's outcry, her shock at the accusations, had felt genuine. Her assertion that Mark inflicted those wounds on himself had seemed more plausible in the moment, especially considering the dynamic I had observed between them. The session had ended with no clear resolution, both of them accusing each other of manipulation. The note I found later, hidden under Mark's chair with the words, "Help me, she's going to kill me," had initially thrown me into a dilemma. After much contemplation and a haunting feeling in my gut, I had decided to inform the authorities, unsure if I was intervening in a genuine case of abuse or being manipulated myself. The call from Leah days later had been unexpected. Her voice, calm and mature, speaking of a mutual decision to seek individual therapy and take a break, had contradicted the distraught woman I had met in my office. The explanation about the note being a misunderstanding, an attempt by Mark to express his feelings, had seemed off. In the weeks that followed, my thoughts often returned to them. I had pondered over the layers of their relationship, the possibility of manipulation from either side, but as time passed, my intuition kept pulling me back to one conclusion: Mark's abusive behavior. I had started to see the subtleties in his actions during our session, the way he had twisted words, his dismissive attitude towards Leah's emotions, and his attempt to portray himself as the victim. It was a classic case of psychological abuse, hidden behind a veil of charm and calculated victimhood. Looking back, Leah and Mark's story served as a stark reminder of the complexities and intricacies of human relationships. It taught me the importance of trusting my instincts as a therapist and the need to look beyond the surface. As I sat in my office, reminiscing, the note lay in my drawer, a symbol of a pivotal moment in my career. It served as a reminder of the case that had profoundly challenged my beliefs and honed my skills as a therapist, guiding me in my future endeavors to decipher the truth hidden within the human psyche. 2 years ago, at 16, in the bustling corridors of Lincoln High, I discovered my unique talent for manipulation. It was more than just a skill, it was a game, and I played it with the precision of a chess master. My classmates, with their transparent yearnings for acceptance and validation, were like open books to me. I read them effortlessly, manipulating their emotions and actions for my own entertainment. Jenny, for example, was an easy target. Her longing for friendship and approval made her malleable. A few compliments here, a sympathetic ear there, and she was mine. She saw me as a confidant, a friend, but in reality she was just another pawn in my game. I didn't do it out of malice or a desire for control. For me, it was simply how I interacted with the world. I couldn't feel genuine connections, so I created superficial ones. I was adept at mimicking emotions, at appearing to be what others needed me to be. It was like wearing a mask that never came off. Mike was a different sort of challenge. Unlike the others, he wasn't easily swayed by superficial charm. He was guarded, perceptive, which piqued my interest. He wasn't a target for manipulation. He was a puzzle to solve. Our interactions started in math class. I offered to help him with an assignment, not out of kindness, but out of curiosity. How would someone like him react to my tactics? It was an experiment of sorts. "Need help with the assignment?" I asked, my tone casual, yet calculated. As we worked together, I observed him closely, analyzing his responses, his body language. There was something intriguing about the way he didn't immediately succumb to my usual strategies. But it was all a game to me. There was no real connection, no genuine interest. I couldn't feel that. Not really. Lunchtime presented a choice. Jenny, the predictable option, or Mike, the enigma. I chose Mike, not for friendship, but as a study, a challenge. Sitting with him in the library, our conversation was a chess match. I shared stories, feigning vulnerability, but it was all a performance. Mike asked me directly about my manipulation. "Why do you do it? Manipulate people?" He had seen through my facade. I could have lied, but I decided to tell him the truth, partly out of curiosity to see his reaction. "It's all I know," I said. "I can't feel like you do. This is how I interact with the world." He seemed to understand, or at least he tried to. "You don't have to wear a mask with me," he said. But the mask was not something I could simply take off. It was a part of me. When the bell rang, signaling the end of lunch, I felt nothing. There was no internal struggle, no sense of lost control or newfound hope. It was just another day, another interaction. As I walked back to class, I realized that Mike had become just another part of my game. He was an interesting study, but nothing more. I couldn't connect with him, not genuinely. I couldn't connect with anyone. Looking back now, 2 years later, I understand that I am different. My interactions are calculated, my emotions a facade. I am a sociopath, and this is my reality. The game of manipulation is not just a pastime, it's a necessity, a way to navigate a world of emotions that I can mimic but never truly understand.